Welcome to the GSD with Jenny podcast, where we talk about how to overcome all the stuff that gets in the way of getting shit done. Imposter syndrome, fear, money, relationships, networking, building businesses. We're going to talk to experts, or as I say, mavens, that provide practical and tactical advice on how to GSD. I'm your host, Jenny Buchholz, founder and CEO of Haven Creative. Now, I started my business with $300 in a laptop and grew it to a team of Haven mavens serving clients around the world and generating over 7 figures in revenue. We were named one of the fastest growing companies in Charlotte and 2024 Crowns of Enterprise Woman-Owned Business of the Year, and I'm incredibly proud of the success we've had and to be among the 1% of woman-owned advertising agencies in the country. But I still need help too. So I started this podcast with the intent to dive deeper into the things that hold us back from achieving our goals. So thank you for joining me on this journey to GSD. Let's get started. Today we have Nicholle Overkamp. She is on a mission to empower women to take control of their finances and live on their terms. As a best-selling author of Money Bitch and founder of Wilcox Financial Group and Powerhouse Money Coaching, she's providing women with the tools and education to feel financially confident. As a certified Money Bitch best-selling author and founder of Wilcox Financial Group and Powerhouse Money Coaching, she provides women with the tools and education to feel financially confident. Nicholle co-founded the Mox AI Co., helping entrepreneurs leverage AI to scale their businesses. She's the co-author of Money Bitch, a no BS guide for smart women to own their financial future, and a host of the Becoming Powerhouse podcast. Nicholle serves on the board of the Mezzo Allies, Inc. and the Entrepreneurs Organization in Western New York, combining her passion for financial empowerment with giving back. When she's not coaching, she's a fitness fanatic, an avid reader, and she loves spending time with her golden doodle, Remy. Please welcome Nicholle. Welcome, Nicholle. So happy to have you on today.
Thank you. I'm always excited to talk to you, Jenny.
I'm sure there'll be some F-bombs, but we'll try to bleep them out. So first and foremost, I want to understand how you started on your entrepreneurial journey to get to where you are today.
Yeah. So I started out of sheer, I don't even know if there's a word for it, but I was naive, pretty ignorant, and extremely frustrated, right? Like I had zero intention really of starting a business, but I was working for a big financial firm. I didn't like what I was seeing. I found out that some things were happening behind my back. And at 25, I had a very immature, screw everybody, I'm leaving and I have no plan kind of moment. And that's how it all started. And really, I think it was one of the most heartbreaking moments in my professional career because I didn't know people could think and operate like that. But I'm simultaneously forever grateful for it because I would have never had the gumption elsewise to have the confidence and faith to start out on my own and then take this journey to create a space that at the time in Western New York just didn't exist for women.
Yeah. So tell me about that because you're in the financial industry, which is predominantly male, right? At the time?
At the time, still. It's one of those industries that doesn't seem to change too fast. And, I've been at this now for, way too long. And, but I wanted a space where I could create for women. And I saw the unique challenges that women faced when it came to financial planning. And it's not the traditional, they take time off to make babies and they're getting paid less. No, it is the reality that we are working full time. We are taking care of the family. We are less likely to speak up, advocate for ourselves, ask for the raise. We're less likely to plan because we're spread so damn thin. And put ourselves first and then also be taken seriously. Who do we talk to where we don't feel completely incompetent or vulnerable or uncomfortable? It's really these emotional parts that just weren't being addressed. And there wasn't a space for that as far as hey, show up. You're not going to be judged. I don't care where you are, how much you're earning or how little you have to show for it for that matter. I care about you. I want to support you relentlessly and create a space where we can provide a plan and hold you accountable and make it fun. Because the other thing that I saw, experienced personally too, is like money. There's so much emotion wrapped up into it that we don't give it credit for. And if we can harness that power and convert it to something fun, something that we're not afraid of anymore, we are unleashing this incredible amount of potential in women to not only own their future, build wealth for themselves, but what happens when women have money? They're showing their daughters and their kids how to manage it well. They're giving them confidence. They're giving other women permission. They're donating more because women give more statistically. And so it's like, I wanted to build that company, the system, the movement, the money bitch movement, if you will,
I love that.
And of course this wasn't overnight, it evolved, but it's like, I hate things and people and companies that talk about statistics and don't put action behind it. And that's where I wanted to be different. I was so tired of hearing the things, feeling the things myself, right? Going to meetings and having the man talk to my husband and not me, even though I was the one who did the numbers and just all of that stuff that you want to pretend doesn't exist today anymore or didn't then. And it did. And it was evident and disgusting. And, so many stories that, I could go on for days and it just wasn't acceptable. And I have a low threshold and tolerance for inappropriate behavior and not having resources for hardworking, badass, incredible women that deserve it.
So you're 25 and you're like, I'm not doing this anymore. And you go out on your own. Day one, what happens? Like, how did you actually start?
Cried. That's what happened. I didn't have a plan. I had my shit together. I didn't know how to grow business. I was like, I finally found my home base where I wanted to land after interviewing like all these places. And I was like, all right, I found a broker dealer and he was the first person, by the way, the first man that actually respected me, took me seriously, saw my vision. And so I had my DBA, I didn't even have an LLC yet. And I sat at my desk and I just burst into tears. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. I was getting threatening calls from the last firm that I left saying, if you call any of your clients, we're going to come after you. We're talking bad about you. Don't even try. Call after call. And I was so, this is the naive part. I didn't know what they were doing was illegal. I had no idea what they were saying was, but I was so broken at the time. And I was so intimidated because these were the men that were crushing it in the industry and they were well connected and they were powerful. And who was I to stand up against them? Right. And so but that also gave me that like rocket fuel to say, fuck you. There's the F-bomb. I'm going to figure this out. And so it was really messy. It took me a while. And my clients that I had fortunately did find me. They sought me out and there's nothing sexy about it. I was pounding the pavement. I was figuring out how to start over again. I actually had a pretty big book at the time when I left and I was terrified to, of course, call it because of, threats. And so people called me and it was a slow build. The first couple of years were painful and I had to find my footing and cadence and frankly, learn how to run a business. I think what I didn't understand at the time is that even though I'm good at my craft, and I'm passionate about what I do, it didn't qualify me to be a business owner. It qualified me to still be a financial advisor.
Well, isn't that? But that's also what every entrepreneur starts out. Like I was design and marketing, right? I'm like, I love creating. And now I'm like, shit, I got to do IT and payroll. And this sucks.
I need a website. What's marketing? I don't understand, So it evolved and I don't know about you, Jenny, but I look back at my original logo,
oh God, it's embarrassing.
Oh my God, it's so embarrassing. And and it's funny is I think as my journey evolved and my confidence evolved, right? My design changed. It was like I became more me, more unique, more like my personality versus initially I was still kind of like conforming to like that burgundy brand, you know what I'm saying?
Totally get it. I totally get it.
It's blue and flowers and bold and like this is who we are, like it or not. And so, but the best thing I did early on is I hired someone. I hired an assistant, and I paid her before I could pay myself. And that was the smartest thing I did, because I knew if I have any superpower, it's knowing what I suck at. And I knew I sucked at paperwork and organization, and to be able to take that off my plate really allowed me to hone in on business development strategy, and the actual advising. And so that was the first best thing. And because I'm a very slow learner, it took me a while to hire a business coach, but that was the next best thing, where she really helped take what I had built and learned over the years and just fine tune package. And because I paid her such an ungodly amount of money at the time, I also was like so committed to doing whatever she said that which was good. And, in hindsight, because if not, I probably wouldn't have done those big, scary things and, getting on this thing called social media and putting myself out there and, all of that stuff. So that's really, I think the couple of things that helped form the business part as I was just scrambling, I think, and I don't know if you did this too, but it was just like, I looked around, observed. I was this like consistent learner. I tried to be a sponge. I looked at every business that was doing well, not even in my industry specifically. And I asked a million questions. I took them to lunch. I took them to coffee. I stalked them, I probably would have been like their janitor at the time, let's go to the toilets and give me business tips, but that's what I did. And, and I was scrappy for a few years, and you just, you get shit done, right? You figure it out. And I was so determined to just not fail. Like that was, I didn't probably do it the smartest way. I probably did it harder than smarter in the beginning there. But, knowing that failing wasn't an option and just having those guys see that happen to me, I would have rather died, and so that was, thank you very much, to that, kind of fuel, but it was a big help, looking back.
Yeah. So you're a couple of years in, you're not really making any much revenue at that time before you started investing in an employee and getting a coach, or?
So I hired her, I think actually within my first year. So
oh, wow.
I was making enough to pay her in like kind of ish break even. But it was, I was working around the clock, and unfortunately I was single. I had a nice little savings. And so I knew I had a runway where it would be okay to do that. And so I had nobody to worry about but myself. And so it was easy, it was easy to live off of sweet potatoes and popcorn and,
So crazy, right? It also sounds like early on, and I love this, it's a really important takeaway, is that we've got to delegate, right? You said delegate to elevate. We've got to delegate the shit we're not good at. How did you figure that out for yourself? Was there a tool you used?
It was, so actually, and interestingly enough, when I was at the last firm, I had a couple assistants before I left. So I started in the business very young. I was 21 and I did well quickly. And so I had already had a couple of assistants, and I knew at that, when I left, I couldn't just go back to ground zero and doing all of this myself.
Okay.
And I was told early on, actually, when I was at that bigger firm, they told me, Nicholle, you're not good at paperwork and you're terrible with organization. Like you need to pay someone to, but that was actually the conversation, right? Like after a whole other slew of gaslighting. And I was like,
wow,
hey, you are the gospel and I'm going to,
fantastic.
And so I did that in going through it. And so there wasn't a strengths finder, and at the time they didn't even have like any kind of disc or, it was truly every man eat what they kill, and you're on your own island, but you had like a manager kind of yelling at you all the time. It was that mentality, like hire young kids, tell them, like threaten them. And, have you seen like Wolf on Wall Street? It was kind of that. Yeah. Very similar mentality. And so, it was really interesting. And so I knew, and even the person that I hired, what I did, I read a lot. So I always read other like business books and podcasts, and I still do that. I try to listen to something every single day. And I read this book about making sure that if you hire you or have a business partner, that there's someone opposite to you, like opposite your personality. And so the person I hired actually as my assistant, she was on the board at the time. I was the president of the ABWA, the American Business Women's Association, and she had joined as the treasurer. She took a buyout from a bank and was kind of also soul searching a little bit and needed work. And so I knew she was super organized. She loved paperwork, and she could sit still and focus. Also, the things I can't do well.
Not me. Yeah.
Like,
same.
And it was great. Like, she had her shit together and I didn't. I mean, it was hilarious, looking back at the things you do to make it work, right?
Absolutely.
So that's where it started.
The key traits I heard you say. So one, you were humble enough to ask for help and know what you weren't good at. And you were able to delegate that, but you had a very strong vision of what you wanted. And I think, yes, we can say it was serendipitous that someone fell into our lap, but I think we wouldn't see that if we didn't know where we wanted to go. Like, would you say that you're always kind of that visionary?
Yes. Yeah, I will say, and for those of you who have done traction or any of that, like I am Sarah's the integrator. I am the visionary, and we joke all the time. I'm the wow, she's the how.
That's so funny. That's what Jess says about us.
That's hilarious. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've always had this crystal clear vision of the future and what I want and what I want to create. I'm not always sure how to figure it out, in all the details, but that vision, I've had similar iterations of it since probably I graduated high school.
So tell me, once you finally started to pick up some traction with the business, how did the Money Bitch movement come about?
So I wish I had this like brilliant story and like we whiteboarded on a wall and had all this purpose and we didn't. And so what had happened is I told Sarah one day, and this is how my brain works, we're going to write a book. Like, it was like one of those like, yeah, I'm doing this. And she's like, okay, like, because that's what Sarah always says, bless her heart. And not the Southern bless your heart, by the way. I learned what that really means. I don't know, whatever. You get the point. And so she always goes along with my antics. And so, but then we did hire a coach to help with the writing process. And they said, come up with the table of contents first. That's the best way to write a book. So that's what I did. I came up with the table of contents and then the outline for, the chapters and what that would look like. And then it was the title part. And so what we did is we said, let's go to Florida, let's get out of here and we'll have a creative brainstorming session to get a title together and just kind of hang. And we were in a pool and literally spitballing titles and names and we stayed at her mom's condo in Florida. It's like a senior living place. And we're in the pool having a couple cocktails, yelling out names, and we're getting all these like unasked for, unsolicited feedback from like senior ladies, just like like. And so, I was like, bitch, and I can't remember like exactly, but like there were a few like, ooh, sexy, and it just stuck. And I'm like, you know what? That's good. That's bold. There's going to be a lot of people that hate it. They're not my people. Sure. That's cool. And then it's interesting. Like, I don't want it to be the typical, like, women who invest or, that's like, ugh, I don't want to read that. Like, make me a money bitch. And then as we started to talk about it and the why behind it, that's where the whole movement really, really started to happen. And in 2020 helped in terms of like, everybody needed community. So we built the private Facebook community and then put marketing behind it and just, we were available, we were present and having conversations, right? I think at the point of writing the book too, is where I got very transparent and vulnerable and verbal publicly about all the things. I did a challenge where I went live on social media every day and just telling stories, client stories without, of course, sharing their information or names. And then my stories. I mean, I am a financial advisor, you could say expert, but I am also a human and I've screwed up big time, right? I've made so many financial mistakes. I've avoided hard conversations and paid dearly for it. And so I started to talk about that as well. And I found that, we are more alike than we are different, whether it's money or as an entrepreneur, and women related to that. And it really started to open up the floodgates of better conversations and relationships, and started to change the game for us when people were like, oh, wow, like, you get it, right? I can vibe with that, or I feel comfortable talking to you because you're sharing all of this stuff where I didn't think you would make a mistake like that. Or, it's like, yeah, it's easy to tell people what to do, but to do it yourself is different. And we all go through those things,
Yep.
It's just how you deal with it. How self-aware are you? So
I love that. When we get vulnerable and we have those conversations, we find the connections with others, and we realize we are not so alone. Part of the reason I started this podcast, because, getting shit done, we all struggle with it. You can be a successful entrepreneur, but we still struggle with how to get things done. So going back to the money bitch movement, what are the key tenets of it? What is it about specifically to you? You talked about your why, so I'd love to hear that.
Yeah. It is, number one is, it is giving women the tools that they need to move the needle. And when I say move the needle, it is in either advocating for themselves to get paid more, or leave their job and start a business, or if they are a business owner, reframe the way that they're thinking about their company, their value, their pricing, and what that looks like allowing them to see their potential. It is giving them the tools to believe they can. There are so many conversations I have where we women, and myself included, like, we sometimes need someone else to believe in us before we believe in us, and truly show us how capable we are. And even part of like the financial planning process, it's like, once you see what you're capable of achieving, you're unstoppable. And so many of our clients are impact driven. And so the third part of that is like, well, how can we make a bigger impact together to allow all women to rise? And if we're being bold and verbal and talking about it, and then getting other women to talk about it, and also simultaneously helping them build and retain their wealth by planning, they're giving other women permission to do the same thing. And so with all of those pieces and components, to me, it is this sliver of a fraction where through this movement, hopefully we can start to gain more traction. That's my big, hairy goal, right? Gain traction to shift some of these statistics that we hear all the time, because they are changing. And even, many of our clients, there are women, of course, they're the breadwinners. They are the breadwinners. They are asking for more. They're making more after we start working together. And it's like, to me, that's why I get mad. And we donate a portion of our profits back to causes that support and empower women every year. And we encourage women who we're working with to do the same. Because to me, it's that full circle, and that's a true movement. It's not just like one unilateral, like, I'm doing this really for me because I want to see, I want to be visible and I want to like disrupt. No. Yeah. It's like this big, huge mission of impact and inspiration and changing the game, because as women, we are capable of more. We can do better. We need to do better. For our daughters, for us, for each other, for our best friends.
So when we talk about asking for what we're worth, I know one of the biggest things I struggle with in my company was asking for pricing or rates that I thought we should be getting. And comparatively, I think we're like 30% less than most agencies originally, because I just didn't understand the value pricing. What are some tools or tactics you could share with listeners about how to ask for what they're worth?
Yeah. So I think it is, and pricing is tricky. Sometimes it's definitely more of an art than a science. But some of the things that helped me were, number one, I did research. And so I looked at what other advisors were charging, and then I saw what they were doing. And I was like, why are there not people lined up at my door? So like, that was confidence booster number one, as we were providing more value, a better service. And what I learned through that process is I needed to articulate that better. I needed to communicate that and market it and put it into our pricing. We were undercharging by an extraordinary amount as well. And arguably we still are, we're working on it.
But always, we're all work in progress.
We're always working on it. That was the first thing. And then I had clients say, why are you charging more for this? Right?
Shit.
Why aren't you charging more for this? I would have paid double. And and my response was, really? So guess what? The next client paid double, right? And then when the next client paid double and said yes and said, this was so amazing, this was valuable, I said, oh my gosh, like, thank you. I appreciate you. Like, can you tell me why? And so I started to compile those whys in those case studies. And then I used that as well as we were building out the process. And then I studied my time too. And so I would also do these like time awareness logs and look at how much time I was spending, not just client facing. So I think in service-based businesses, we forget the time in. We forget not just what we're doing on the client facing side, but how much research are we doing before, after, input, thought process.
In the middle of the night.
In the middle of the night, oh, and by the way, my clients text me on a Sunday because they, just had this devastating breakup and they don't know what they're going to do about their living situation. And we take those calls, and so all of that and to have that person in your back pocket, like, what's the price on that? And oh, by the way, I've been studying hard for over a decade. So what's the price on that? Because I know more, I can support you more, and I can give you advice that can help change your life, right? So what's that value? It's the value we're providing. And I think sometimes we get so hung up on price. And then what we do is we internalize it. And because we feel like it's a lot of money, right? This is like your mindset.
Absolutely.
Like it's a lot of money. We don't think they'll pay the money. When in truth, it's like, wait a minute, the value we're providing, they're making more money off of it. So how is that a high price? Right. So it's converting the thinking on that.
And it sounds, again, just being completely authentic and knowing the value you provide. But I also think it is okay to stumble and figure those things out. Like you mentioned, you've got to get some of that confidence, and confidence sometimes comes from the case studies, the people around you, to build that street cred up to then get that dollar
somewhere,
Yeah, you gotta learn a little bit, and that's okay. But you're right. In the value-based pricing, the other thing I think that people sometimes, they're so nervous about how they say it. So then that confidence right away is, you question it. And so I always kind of encourage people, like, just say your rate.
For sure. And that's the thing, again, that I learned. And, I learned it from a man, of course. It's like people buy confidence. They don't hear the price. They buy your confidence and conviction and how you can help them. And again, I think women have more of a tendency to second guess themselves and get nervous depending on that other person's personality or the energy you're feeling. And so if you feel intimidated, what happens to your mindset, right? All of a sudden, you go in brazen, ready to quote it, and then they have some kind of energy about them. And all of a sudden you're like, well, I typically charge this, but we can talk about it if that doesn't work. Okay. And how many times have you either done that or seen another woman do that? And you're like, hey,
absolutely.
But it happens. And so I think it's that, again, that practice and the self-awareness and shit. Like this is a work in progress. And I think giving yourself grace on that too is okay. I mean, for the longest time, I was trying to contort myself into this perfect little person of what everybody else expected me to be. And that's exhausting. It's exhausting. Yeah. And what happened for me was I went through this, devastating experience with my husband, and we were in an accident. And, overnight, I was 30, I became a caretaker. I had to run my business, and he's fine now, by the way. But going through all of that, I just had this breaking point where I was like, I do not care, like zero fucks at this point of what anybody thinks of me. I need to show up. I need to do a good job. I am not going to look perfect every day. I'm probably going to look like a train wreck half the days, but I'm doing a good job and I care. And, oh, by the way, here are all the things that I did wrong in experiencing this situation that I'm in right now. And I don't want you to do it. So I'm going to talk about it because I care. You don't have to listen. You can judge me for it, but I'm going to talk about it. And And, that's really where I think it started out of exhaustion.
Yeah.
And it started out of like, man, like somebody's got to talk about this because nobody did. And a lot of the things I experienced personally weren't in the textbook, I got to tell you. And other advisors weren't talking about it and or advocating for it. And so, it was a combination of like, I went through this terrible, devastating thing. And then I was also so exhausted that I didn't have enough energy to care what anyone thought, combined with I must now do really well and support my family. So full steam ahead. I'm going after this target. I'm staying focused. I'm getting shit done. I'm still communicating with my core audience, my ideal client. And if there are people who are not on board with that, I'm just going to let them go because they are too much energy to and that I think is for me at least where it started, and it's evolved since then. And I would be lying to say that I have it all figured out.
No,
I don't, and I'm still working on it. Confidence for me is always a work in progress. I have my moments where I most definitely regress, but I think what I have found is that, and what's empowered me to continue to be my authentic self is other women who have come up to me and said, thank you. Thank you for doing that, or thank you for wearing that, or thank you for saying that, because I would love to be able to do that.
I think, yeah, like you said, being completely authentic came from a point of exhaustion. I can totally relate to that, but it's so freeing, right? When we let go of the mask or the things and be like, oh, this is who I am, and take it or leave it. And I love that, you still created a space to do the things that you love, whether that, fit into this societal norm or not, or whatever. But it also, you mentioned in your bio that you're fanatic about your workouts. So tell me about how you do create boundaries around your day to get shit done that you want to do.
Yeah. So it actually started from, again, like exhaustion. And I was like, a big jerk at the office, and because I do need to work out, like that is part of my mental health. But it was years ago, it was easy for me to schedule over it thinking I had to have one more meeting. And so what happened was Sarah, being the, badass that she is, she said, I'm kicking you out of the office. I'm blocking out your calendar and you're leaving. And so, that's where it started. Cause sometimes again, you need that person, right? But now it is non-negotiable for me. So, and I am very routine about my schedule. The more routine I am, the more freedom it actually creates for myself. And so, every day I have a block from 4 to 6, and that is when I work out. It is when I eat dinner. It happens no matter what. I don't care what's going on. I don't care what event there is. I am doing that. And if there's an event that's important enough for me to schedule during that time, I will block out the morning to then make that workout happen. And so in addition to that workout, I also walk every day. I've walked every day for the last 8 years, regardless of the weather, regardless of what's going on. And I listen to something, because I found if in doing that, number one, it allows me to keep a high frequency. I work in an industry that is extremely stressful, and I hear a lot of heavy stuff, right? And as much as I love it, there are days where I just feel like I got the shit kicked out of me. And by the way, life is hard, business is hard, like all the things. And so, but I have to show up 110% and be my client's hype person, right? I have to be on and high energy. And so for me to take care of myself mentally and maintain that level of energy, positivity, perspective, those are the two things I have to do every single day. And it's non-negotiable so that I can show up better. And when I do that, I'm also more productive and I'm not as tired. So, I have this saying, like, sometimes taking a break is the most productive thing you can do. And, busy isn't productive. And so it's efficiency. And if you're glazing over at a screen because you're fried, who are you helping? Right? Like, most definitely not your hips. And so like, get your butt up and, dance, yoga, whatever you got to do. But yeah, and I learned it by burning out. A lot of what I do and my routines are because I fell flat on my face. I screwed up. I failed, And so it's like, I'm not going back there again. So these are the things that I know I need to do. And when I'm walking, I'm listening to something I'm learning. So for me, it's like, I owe that to my clients to always be actively studying or learning something that can help me give back in some way, shape, or form. And so that's how I do all of that together, but make it work in a way that I can not feel completely drained.
I love that. I think it's Atomic Habits where they talk about habit stacking. So you're doing the learning while you do your exercise but yes, those time blocks are critical. And much like you, I went through a massive burnout phase where it came because I had to after that. Like I literally am like, I'm not going to survive if I don't block my calendar out. And just like on an airplane, put your mask on first. You're absolutely right. If we don't take care of ourselves, we cannot pour energy into others. And as a high energy person, I imagine that is you normally. You're pouring into others all day long. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's one last piece of advice you could give someone, whether it is entrepreneurship, or maybe it's someone that just wants to be a leader in the organization, or someone who's struggling with financial things? Like, what would be one go-to piece that you could share with everyone?
I think number one is take 5 and write down what you want. What do you want? We don't do that. We forget to do it. We intend to do it. We think about it, but we don't write it down. Write down what you want and then order it in terms of importance to you or priority. Stare at it. And if you don't know how to make that first thing happen, go find the person who can help you and make that non-negotiable, because you are the only person who can be your best advocate. You are the only person who is going to care about the things that you care about, and no one else is going to do it for you. And so you have to love yourself enough to do the hard things. And that is usually the hard thing. And it's so simple.
Simple, but not easy, right? Sitting down and taking time for yourself. I love that. It's so good. You can't get somewhere if you don't know what you want to do. So sitting down and taking that time to vision is the first step to GSD. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Last but not least, everyone has a hype song. We're making a playlist. What's your song to help you get shit done? Maybe your favorite workout walking song. What would it be?
My favorite song is Alicia Keys' Underdog. Like, I love that song. I play it before I do a talk, before I do, like, I don't know why. Speaks to my soul. I love it. That is it. I don't work out to it, but man, do I love that song. So
no, that's great. That's awesome. We'll add it to the list. So thank you so much, Nicholle. I mean, it's always been fun to talk to you. I just love your energy. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to GSD with Jenny. If you found this episode helpful, share it with a friend. For more ways to GSD, you can also find me on LinkedIn at Jenny Buchholz, where you can sign up for my Maven Mindset newsletter, or follow me on Instagram at Maven Jenny. Until next time, go GSD, Mavens!